So it's a trade-off. Some lose for others to live, and that is freedom.
February 19th, 1945. The United States and the nation of Japan were in direct conflict with one another. The battle that was set to be had on the tiny little island of Iwo Jima was one that would set the stage for the ending of World War II. Iwo Jima, measuring at 8 square miles, was a strategic stronghold to the nation of Japan. The United States led an effort of 110,000 U.S. Marines, U.S. soldiers, U.S. Navy, and U.S. Air Force, while the nation of Japan had 20 to 21,000 soldiers that were embedded on the island already. In the days leading up to the actual invasion of Iwo Jima, the U.S. Air Force and Navy were already bombing the tiny little island. This seemed to have little to no effect on the actual forces of the Japanese, as they were embedded underground on the island. As U.S. forces began their invasion, they would soon realize they were not reaching the beach completely. They would have to offload their forces into water. As they would get onto the beach, they would find that they would go ahead and step into the sand, which was not actually sand. It was volcanic ash, as the island of Iwo Jima was primarily formed from a volcano. As they would go ahead and try to invade on the beach, they were soon struck by mortar fire. As the mortar fire would rain down on top of the beaches, the casualties for the U.S. forces were quickly piling up. The Joint Task Force that was led by the Marines primarily were trying to advance over top of the hills onto the mainland of the island. Storming over top of the hills of the beaches were only soon able to be accomplished by an effort from the Naval Construction Battalions, or CVs, who were able to bulldoze over top of the beaches while under enemy fire. After getting up over top of the hills of the beaches, the U.S. forces began taking control of the island of Iwo Jima. By the first evening of the battle, about 30,000 Marines had been on the island. Approximately 40,000 more would follow soon after. As the number of Japanese fighters began to dwindle, the U.S. began to expect and anticipate more banzai attacks, or suicide attacks as they were commonly referred to, and even attacks in the nighttime, which would soon become commonplace in the battle. These type of attacks were commonplace by the Japanese, as it was a sign that they knew that defeat was surely imminent. Probably the most famous moment of the Battle of Iwo Jima was the raising of the flag on Mount Suribachi that took place on February 23rd, 1945, 5 days after the battle began. Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal took the most famous photograph of 5 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman raising the flag. 3 of the men would be killed before the Battle of Iwo Jima was over. After the raising of the flag on Mount Suribachi, there was the matter of securing the island of Iwo Jima. The Japanese had turned their forces to the northern end of the island so they can secure their stronghold positions. Subsequently, they had also learned American techniques and began to employ them and use them on the American forces. Even though they knew what they were doing, the U.S. forces began to prevail over the Japanese tactics and began to take control of the northern part of the island and subsequently the entire island itself. Iwo Jima would be officially declared secure on March 26th of 1945. This put an official end to the Battle of Iwo Jima. After it was all over, U.S. forces lost 6,821 forces, while the Japanese suffered approximately 18,000 losses. In the end, 27 men were awarded the Medal of Honor, 14 posthumously, the most of any battle or of conflict in U.S. history.
The thing that I think most all Marines feel are the heroes died on that island, and it was really tough.
The guys who didn't come back were the real heroes. But there were some great men who did unbelievable things in the war to keep it going. You know, officers, great officers, great men. Where do we get these men from? Where do they come from?
Freedom is probably the most wonderful thing that we can even comprehend. freedom to be free. There's a part of my dedication to my life and for you and so forth, that I believe freedom to be the great thing. To be free is worth dying for.
Well, there is a price to pay. And it took a lot of lives.
That there's always a price. Nobody can put a monetary price on freedom. If you're called to duty in an emergency, you better be obliged.
You've got to work for it. You've got to be willing to fight for it and give up your life if you have to, for your family and for your buddies and for your friends and your country. It's the best country in the world.
Freedom is expensive. And when you look at lives, you have to agree.
Let freedom ring. Let freedom ring. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. My native country, thee, land of the noble free, thy name I love. I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and templed hills. My heart with rapture thrills like that above. Let freedom ring. Great God our King, from sea to shining sea, let freedom ring. So let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees, sweet freedom song. Let mortal tongues awake, let all that breath partake, let rocks their silence break, the sound prolong. Let freedom ring. Great God our King, from sea to shining sea, let freedom ring. Our fathers, God to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. Let freedom ring. Great God our King, from sea to shining sea, let freedom ring. Let freedom ring. Great God our King, from sea to shining sea, let freedom ring. Oh, great God, our King, live free.